What's up, Tiger fans? Anthony Romo here. Pleased to be joined with the Springfield head football coach, Sean Guerriero. The Tigers gearing up for Week 11, a place that Springfield has become all too familiar with in the last few years. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Oh, not a problem. Thanks for having me.
So it's been a roller coaster of a season. You guys started out 0-4, playing some very tough teams, and then you guys hit your stride at the right time, winning your last six, finishing the regular season 6-4. And before we touch into any of that, Coach, I got to ask, with the playoff format being switched from 8 teams to 16 teams per region, do you think that makes schools a little bit more flexible with how they want to schedule some of their non-conference opponents?
What I do know for us that we ended up doing for us that I think our schedule at the beginning of our season. You mean is the schedule we're going to find out? You know what I mean? If we're playoff ready or we have the potential to be playoff ready right off the bat, and seeing South Range, Brookfield, Geneva, which is a D3 school. I think those three games right there. You mean obviously I think we're going to be a little bit battle tested. Our kids know the expectations of what we want to do. But if we want to make a run at the playoffs, those are the teams that we're going to have to compete with. For down the road. So I think it's challenging for us. I think it was. Oh, I think it was either 2016, or maybe it was 18 that we went 9-1 and we didn't make the playoffs. So right now you can. I think you can schedule up a little bit. There is some flexibility, and for us to, we lucked out with having a home game, but I do feel like we should try to challenge our kids earlier in the season and see where we're at.
And then looking at those teams, like you said, South Range 10-0 in the regular season, Brookfield 9-1, Geneva's a playoff team, Lowville 10-0. So obviously it wasn't an easy start to the season for you guys. But then we go to Mineral Ridge, week 5. I mean, what a game that was for you guys to kind of fight back in that game against a Mineral Ridge team that was undefeated coming into it. And you guys fought to the end and you were able to come out on top. Just what was the locker room feeling like after finally being able to feel a win in this season?
Well, I feel like with the schedule, I feel like our kids were kind of beat up. I feel like our kids were excited about the season, and you play South Range, and then we lose, and our kids were kind of like, "What the heck's going on here?" I give a lot of credit to our seniors because we talked earlier in the season about how tough it was going to be, and I always say, we're not going to win a championship, in weeks 1 through 3, so we just got to make sure that we're playing our best football at the end of the season, not the beginning. So I give a lot of credit to our seniors just because of the leadership they provided for our kids. How positive they were at the beginning of the season, and I do think that carried over into that game. And our kids, whether we were down in those first couple games, or that we were down a touchdown, 2 or 3, our kids never gave up. They kept battling. And I think that was the experience that our kids ended up, getting from the playoffs, that you never know what's going to happen. So I give our seniors a lot of credit for keep battling. They have all season. I feel like right now that we're playing, our best football right now going into week 11. And that was kind of always our game plan. You got to time this thing right if you want to make a run. So I feel like our kids are ready. I feel like our kids are enthusiastic. So I feel pretty positive of where our football team's at right now.
Yeah, and I find it really cool with this Springfield squad this year because you look back at the last few years, a lot of those teams are really junior and senior led. You had the names like Brungard, Tyndall, Nesbeth, Yema, Snyder, the list goes on. A lot of these guys on this team this year may have got some scarce playing time. Of course, you have Shondell Gardner, you have Vinny Woods, Dylan Shealy, guys that got a lot of playing time last year. But looking at the list on the roster, it's kind of a lot of guys that have built their own identity this year. You have Colton Rourke at the quarterback position. Ryan Carcelli obviously has moved into a big running back role. Would you say a little bit of that slow start was not a lot of skill guys necessarily getting a lot of varsity playing time up until this year?
Well, I don't know if it was even our skill guys. I think it was our team overall. With that, we have a lot of kids that were just first year players, whether they were sophomores, juniors, or seniors. The past couple of years, we always talk about it. It's not an easy thing, with the talent level that we had to even play for us. The competitiveness of practice, was battling every day. But I do think that that motivated our young kids, and I do think that it challenged our young kids when you're going against, you know what I mean, Bo, the past 2 or 3 years of practice every day. He's still made us better, even for these kids that are going through the program, and the kids that you talked about that have been through our system. I mean, our kids have seen those kids lead. Our kids have seen those kids play. Seen those kids make plays at crucial times. And our kids were still a part of that and still battling through that, and we're still part of that experience. So I just think right now that, I mean, some of our kids right now want to make their own name, want to be the next, like you said, Bo Brungard or Austin Tindall or Lucas Yama, or you know what I mean, or whatever kid they looked up to. So again, I feel like our team's in a good position. I feel like our kids are still battling every day. You know what I mean? For us, even practice today, I mean, on a Monday night, I felt like our kids were very enthusiastic. And I mean, that's one thing we figured out over these past, you know what I mean, couple of years is the season's long. You know what I mean? For our kids, and we start early in the summer, and you want to take these kids and then through doubles and then through the scrimmages and through all that. The season's long. So that's definitely I think our staff has kind of learned how to manage that, and again, trying to time this thing up where we're playing the best football right now.
And so another kind of new thing with this team this year was the move down from Division 6 to Division 7. Kind of an interesting aspect. You guys could possibly play a lot of new teams in the playoffs this year. I think starting with a team like Matthews, that of course was not in Division 6 the last few years. Of course, you guys saw teams like Mogador, Norway in a few years in a row. But let's look into this Week 11 matchup against Matthews, and they're led by head coach Bill Bourne, who's one of the most respected coaches in the state, still kicking at 88 years old as a head coach. Looking into this week's matchup, just what have you seen on tape about Matthews that makes them a dangerous team?
Well, for them, I think defensively, you know what I mean. They're not huge guys, but they're smaller. But it seems like they angle their front and they move their front a lot, which is something that we really haven't seen a lot. Most of the teams we end up playing kind of sitting it. Now, you mean with Ridge, they kind of blitz their backers. Um, Brookfield blitz their backers, but this is more their front angle. And so it's always going to be a challenge. And when you're going to face a team, and especially with Coach Bourne, like you said, who I have a lot of respect for, I talked to on Saturday a little bit, but a guy who's been doing it for that long and has been that productive, even I have a lot of respect for him. And I know their kids are going to play hard. It's just we just got to make sure our kids are ready and are sound. Offensively, it seems like that they have a lot of good playmakers that can get the ball out. Their quarterback does a good job of you know, I mean, running the wing tee and hiding the football. And if our kids aren't you know what I mean, gap sound and don't have our eyes on our key, they can burn you. That's one thing when you face a wing tee team, especially I mean Week 11. They've been practicing this now forever, so it's hard to simulate that at practice. You mean for us, because you mean our kids can't do that in the matter of, you know what I mean, 12 hours. So I just think for us, we just got to make sure that we continue to try to just, I mean, do our job and don't try to do too much. If our kids are, like I said, are gap sound defensively, I think we'll put ourselves in a good position to win. But you just got to make sure. You never know what you know what I mean, what the playoffs hold. Games like this, you never know how kids are going to end up, you know what I mean, reacting to it. Do they feel like there's more pressure, or are we just going to go out and play Springfield football? So, I mean, I think our kids, in being through the past couple of years with our team, understand the importance of it. I count my blessings that we're coming back to Springfield. I know having Tiger Nation coming back for Week 11 is awesome. Our kids were you know what I mean, so excited to be able to have another home game. So our kids are excited. Our school's excited. So this is just another good positive for our kids. And I know on Friday our kids will be ready to play.
Yeah, I know all too well how crucial it is to play at Springfield Tiger Stadium. The atmospheres, you have the fireworks going off, just one of the best atmospheres in all of small town Northeast Ohio football, I would say. And then you talked about senior leadership a little bit ago. How crucial do you think it's been the last few years for your team to make it as far as they have? A lot of the guys that are juniors and seniors now are taking scout team practice reps for a few extra weeks than most teams are playing throughout the season. Even if it was just practice reps, how big do you think that was for you guys to get those reps younger on in their careers?
Well, I do think that's a benefit, and I do think that's one of the main reasons why have we been able to make this run. You know what I mean? Over the past 3 years, our kids have gotten an extra season and a half in with practicing 5 weeks, you know what I mean, each year. So I think it does matter. I know for us too. You mean people get into this, especially with what smaller schools. I mean, you got. I still think when you talk about how Ryan is developed as a back, he's really done a good job. But we've also, I mean, tried to give Dante Gentile a chance in carrying the football, because you get a guy in Division 6 or 7 that's going to carry the ball. You mean 20, 30 times a game, which Ryan has for us, but that's a lot of hits when you're getting into, you mean, 10, 11, 12 games. So I think right now, to our benefit, by using Dante a little bit more, it keeps your guys fresh. We're hopefully right now we're a little bit more fresher than some of these teams where we're able to use two backs rather than one, or rotate kids in, or have some depth at different spots. And I think that's key too. I think throughout the season, you have to try to be able to build depth, because mean, one injury goes down, I mean, the team can be down, but I think for us, we got a little bit of depth, and we're definitely better than we were, I mean, weeks 1, 2, and 3. So I think it's more about learning how to manage it, learning how to, you know what I mean, get better as the season goes on through these runs, because you never know what's going to happen. And we've had it where you brought some names up, like Lucas Yema in the Norway game was huge for us, and he was kind of our third option. But next thing you know, he makes one of the biggest catches, I mean, that we better have it, I mean, in the history of football. So I think our kids, I mean, challenge that. And I think it still comes from practicing and competing. And again, I think that comes from our seniors. Our kids have faced, what I mean, some adversity this year. We've had a couple devastating injuries. I think one of our better leaders is Austin Firster. I think he's been out since week 5. He's coming back this week for us, and I know the kids are excited to be able to get Austin back in the lineup and takes him some reps for us, and we'll see how he does. Whether he plays 10 plays or 20 plays, I don't know, but our kids are excited for him to come back and be in the mix. So I just think you got to juggle a lot of things that you got to make sure you're productive, because we don't, you know what I mean. Depth is something to come by, just to end up building it. So for us, I feel comfortable right now where we have depth, and we're going to be ready to go, I mean, hopefully for these next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that play by Yema against Norway and Boilermaker, that's a play that we'll never forget here at YSN, one of the gutsiest plays ever, I think, here in the Valley. And you were talking about the ability to have running back depth, and I think that has been a crucial part of the success of this team the last few years. Like you had said, you've had that depth with Bo Snyder, Austin Tyndall, Clayton Nesbeth. The list goes on the last few years. So to be able to build up that depth and maintain stamina throughout these hard, cold playoff games, I think, obviously, like you said, it'll be huge. And then finally, Coach, before we cap off this week's interview, just what are some keys to victory for the Tigers this week?
Well, I think for us, I think even when we said we played some adversity, I think our special teams has continually gotten better. I think that was something that's been huge for us. Last week on kickoff, we had a couple tackles inside the 20. We're starting to kick some field goals again and get into a rhythm. So with Kaysen getting injured, it's hard to find a kicker, especially at that caliber that I'm coming. But Hayden Pavlov's done a great job in stepping in and taking on that role. For us, special teams is going to be huge for us, because earlier in the year, we were giving our opponents, I mean, the ball on the 35, 40-yard line, and that's tough. I mean, for our defense to end up doing that. So I think our special teams have gotten a lot better over the weeks. It's always going to come down to turnovers. If we cannot turn the ball over, I think it'll be a positive. We're going to have to establish the run for us to be good, and for us to be able to put points on the board. And then defensively, we just got to continue to run to the football. I think that's something where our defense has gotten better now. Our linebackers are playing well. Our secondary is playing well. Our front line is eating up double teams. So if we can just continue to run to the football, I think we'll put ourselves into a good place of winning it.
All right, Coach. Well, thanks for joining us. Good luck this week, and we hope to speak with you again next week.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate you having me.